It's April 3rd, and the strange side of history awaits. Today, we have an outlaw betrayed for fame, a murder that started the terror in Whitechapel, and a call that quietly reshaped the future. Let's begin. On April 3rd, 1882, in a quiet house in St. Joseph, Missouri, the most wanted outlaw in America was not running, hiding, or fighting for his life. Instead, Jesse James was at home, sitting comfortably with two men he believed he could trust. He was discussing plans for yet another robbery, unaware that the danger he had avoided for nearly 16 years was already in the room with him. Among those men was 20-year-old Robert Ford, a new member of the gang who had secretly made a deal with the government. In exchange for $5,000 and a full pardon, Ford agreed to do something no lawman had managed to accomplish: kill Jesse James. That morning felt ordinary. The conversation was calm, routine, and they spoke about their next target, Platte City. Then, Jesse noticed something small, almost insignificant: a dusty pitcher hanging slightly crooked on the wall. It was the kind of detail most people would ignore, but for some reason, he didn't. For the first time in weeks, Jesse James removed his guns, setting them aside before stepping on a chair to clean the frame. And in that moment, his guard was down and his back was turned. Ford didn't hesitate. Using a .45 caliber revolver that Jesse himself had once given him, he raised the weapon and fired a single shot into the back of his head. The most feared outlaw in the West never saw it coming. Moments later, the Ford brothers sent a telegram and turned themselves in, expecting a reward and recognition. Instead, they were branded cowards, hated by the public for killing a man whose death became something more than an outlaw. He became a legend. As for Robert Ford, the man who pulled the trigger, he would spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder until 10 years later, when someone finally stepped behind him and returned the favor. After everything he survived, it wasn't gunfire that killed him, it was trust. On April 3rd, 1888, in the dim fog-covered streets of Whitechapel, gas lamps barely cut through the darkness and danger seemed to linger in every alley. A woman named Emma Elizabeth Smith was walking alone in the early hours of the morning, unaware she was about to become part of something far more disturbing than anyone could understand. Somewhere near Osborne and Brick Lane, she was confronted, not by one man, but a group. What happened next was sudden, brutal, and merciless, carried out with a level of violence that suggested this was not their first time. Incredibly, she managed to make her way back to a lodging house, step by step, holding herself together long enough to speak. She described the attack and told a friend what had been done to her, and made it clear that it was not a random encounter, but something deliberate. She was taken to hospital, but the damage was too severe, and through the night her condition worsened, and by the following day, she was dead. The official conclusion pointed to a local gang. The case was closed with a verdict of murder by unknown persons. But not everyone was convinced, because in the weeks that followed, more bodies would appear in Whitechapel. The violence would become more precise and more personal and far more terrifying, because a name would soon emerge from the shadows: Jack the Ripper. Emma is not considered to be one of his victims, but her death may have been the first warning that something far darker had already begun in Whitechapel. On April 3rd, 1973, on a busy sidewalk in New York City, a man named Martin Cooper stood holding a strange device in his hand. It was large, heavy, and unnatural for this time. Nearly 9 inches tall, it weighed over 2 pounds, and it wasn't connected to a wire. The device was a prototype called the Motorola Dynatac, a machine that could do something no one had truly experienced before. It could connect one person to another from anywhere. Standing in the open, he made the first call. It was to his rival, a man named Joel Engel at Bell Labs, just to tell him that it worked. In the moment, something invisible shifted. Communication was no longer tied to a place. It was no longer something you could walk away from. From that point on, he could be reached anywhere, at any time. As people passed, they were completely unaware what had just happened beside them. The world quietly crossed a line it would never step back from. This invention was intended to make life better, but do you think it quietly took something away from us? Another day, another strange bite from history. Like, comment, and subscribe. Your next eerie dose is just a day away.